Messed up Sunday and I forgot to announce it, but would anyone here like to cook a turkey or a ham for this Sunday's Thanksgiving dinner? Okay, somebody's got their hand up back there. And Miss Fox and Miss Lowe, okay. Anybody else? Okay. All right, don't leave when I got them here in the refrigerator for you, okay? Thank you very much. Don't forget, this Sunday is our celebration of the 1880s founding of the church and our Thanksgiving dinner. So if you can, come dressed to that period and bring something that goes with the Thanksgiving dinner, okay? Huh? Yeah, stand up and tell them about it, Peggy. Last night was the murder at Matoaka. It was awesome. It was really awesome. Everybody just done a great job, and it was a lot of fun. We thanked 28 or so ladies, and so there won't be another ladies fellowship until next year, probably.
I have announced it, but so I thought December the 7th, which is a Sunday, okay? Sunday afternoon, the ladies will just get together Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Won't bring any dinner or anything, but I just got an activity, and I'll have some socks, or we'll get some socks and $10 gift and do a sock exchange that afternoon, and that'll be our December get together for probably just about an hour. But I have a little dessert activity, and so I'll have dessert and we'll have an exchange. December 7th, Sunday, and I'll get a flyer out.
Okay, all right. So before we get started in our scripture tonight, we want to address the whole world's up in arms over the new mayor. Yesterday was the vote, and a lot of liberal politicians won big time, and along with a Muslim mayor for New York City. And Donald Trump's made some threats and on and on and on. And you're watching the exact same thing that happened in Europe. I believe, if I'm right, the Prime Minister of England now is a Muslim. And but they've been telling us for years that's their plan to, take over. But the thing that got my attention was everybody was screaming that he's a socialist. And I thought, the last 10 mayors or more in New York City has been a socialist. But none of them ever came out and said, hey, look at me, I'm a socialist. But they were socialists. But he just ran as a national socialist and won. So most people are just really, really, I don't want to say unlearned or clueless to where you're at in today's world. And so we don't want that at Matoaka. So we're going to try to do a little bit of education for you. Look at this article that is just the definition of socialism. What is socialism? So you have communism, and there's never been a completely full communist state. There has been some that's been labeled that, but they've never accomplished that. And then what's socialism and how are they different? And then what about fascism? So America is supposed to be a republic, which is a totally different thing. But is it really? Because you can call a horse's tail a leg all day long, but that don't make it a leg. Also, before I forget it, me and Peggy's going to Egbert's after this is over. So it's going to be short tonight because I'm hungry. This is the definition of socialism. Now let's see if you understand what socialism is. And he said, I thought this was a Bible study. Shut your mouth and listen. It's a Bible study. I'm telling you. Watch this. Government manipulation of essential services. Do you see that in your world today? Or the monopolization of essential services? What is an essential service? Well, food isn't a service, but the benefits EBT would be, wouldn't it? Hey, I saw my first EBT food stamp theft because of the food stamp crisis. Today, this morning at the convenience store in Barnesdall, I was walking in the store, and all the girls there, you know, they all call me their pastor. This little skinny, how do I want to say it? I don't want to say that because I don't know. But she looks like maybe she does crystal meth. Anyway, she came out the front doors, and I didn't think anything about it. And then one of the ladies working come right after her, and she said, "No, you didn't." And I was like, "Uh-oh, what happened?" And the little girl, the little lady, she is a young lady. She is headed to her car she was in at the gas pump. She said, the other lady said, "You better get your blankety blank back in here and pay for that chicken." I was like, oh, this is going to get real. So I went in the store, and the lady that was checking everybody out, the place was busy. She hollered at that other lady, "Tell her I'm calling the cops, because she ain't even supposed to be in here because of her thieving hind parts." And I was like, oh. And I said, what happened? She said, she steals something every time she come in here, so we banned her from the store. And she just got in the hot case, got her a bunch of food, and just walked out the door. Not today. I was like, all right, I'm going to stick around for this. So they get the girl to come back in there. She comes up there. She's got a big old 32-ounce energy drink and a bag of food. And the other lady said, "What'd you get?" She said, "I got 3 chicken strips and this drink." And she run it up. She said, $10 and something. And the girl said, "Well, I don't have no money on my EBT." And she said, "Well, what are you doing coming in here just stealing food?" She said, "Duh, I don't have no money on my EBT." And she said, "Here, just put it back." And she said, "I can't put it back up there. You've already touched it." And so the girl just left. She said, "You're not leaving until you pay for this." The girl just left. She said, "If you leave, I'm calling the cops." She ran out, got in the getaway car, and they drove off, and they was cussing at them and calling the cops. Hang on, you're going to see lots of that, right? But this girl just thought, I need chicken. I need something to eat. The store has it. I'm going to go get it. Now look at socialism. So there's a government monopolization of essential services. There's a government controlled and administered health care. Do we have that? Yes, we do. So everybody talks about free health care. We already have free health care to almost everybody except the working man. In my Sunday school class, I went over this. Let me go over it again. What happened was when we established the United States of America, you didn't get a say-so if you weren't part of the nation itself. If you didn't own land and pay taxes, then you didn't get to vote and have a say-so on who governed you. And after a while, there was some corrupt politicians that thought, well, why don't we just give everybody the right to vote? Even people that don't have a dog in the fight. They don't pay taxes. They shouldn't have a say in how the tax money's spent. But if we can get enough of them to get the right to vote, and we can promise them gifts for free if they'll vote, then we can turn this thing on its ear. And that's what happened to America. So you got all these people that have the same amount of vote as rich people or middle class people. You got a person who has never worked, never paid a dime in taxes. They got one vote. You got a person who worked for 40 years every day, 12 hours a day, paid thousands upon hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax. They got one vote. Well, that don't make sense, because anytime you have a system like that, the people that don't contribute at all are going to vote themselves whatever they want. That's where you're at. Now, look at this one. But what I was going to say is, if you don't have, like the other day I saw a video of a lady. She said, I got to have my food stamps. I got 8 children. Well, okay, if she got pregnant with her 9th one, taxpayers would pay for that. All that care, and then the hospitalization of having the kid. Well, that's not right. If the Bible teaches, and in a minute we're going to get to it, personal responsibility. Now, if you decide to get pregnant, then you should have weighed the cost. Well, I got pregnant, my baby daddy, he ran off. Well, you should have thought about that before you had sex with him. Is this a good candidate to be a father of my kids? You know, this dope-headed whatever won't work or whatever. Personal responsibility. So you make a mistake, why do other people have to pay for your mistake? That's not biblical, and I'll show you in a little bit. The Bible says you pay for your own mistakes. Personal responsibility. So not only are you going to feed them now, but she didn't pay for the hospital care of the birthing of her kids. You did. If an indigent person, a poor person, or a homeless person gets hit by a car downtown, when we're racing to go to Egbert's, if we hit one of them, the ambulance comes and takes them to the hospital, but they don't get a bill. Now, if Rocky Banks gets out in front of Peggy when we're going to Egbert's, and Peggy runs him over, he's going to get a bill. Now, you just tell me if you live in a socialized country. Education. Education is subsidized highly by the federal government and the state government. Well, it's government-controlled and administered education. If they control it, they can tell you what books you got to buy. I'm going to tell you something. I don't know if all of you's been to college, but that's a racket. What's the odds of every college counselor, and I don't mean counseling your psychological troubles or mental health. They are supposed to be there to counsel you with your classes. What's the odds that every one of them that has ever existed stunk at their job? Because they always put you in classes that you didn't want to be, and then when you went back to them and said, hey, I want out of that class, they always failed to take you out of that class, and then you didn't find out that you didn't get taken out of that class until it was too late and you had to pay for the class. Every one I've ever heard of. And you always got to buy the book, fresh and new. Well, that's government-controlled education. Centrally planned agricultural policies. Peggy's stepdad, he's got some land outside of Barnesville. It's brush land. It's brush land. He's gotten a check for how many years not to plant something on his land? Well, 50 years, he ain't going to plant that. I don't even think he's got a tractor. But he's got some land. Well, that's what you call centrally planned agricultural policies. You can plant, now you can't plant. Some more agricultural policies. Well, remember when they destroyed 14 bazillion eggs? Remember when they said it was illegal for people to sell raw goat's milk? That's government-controlled agricultural policies. Well, what is that? That's socialism. The government knows better. The government wants you to have to go to Walmart and buy that genetically modified stuff. The United States government has made it illegal for seed manufacturers to sell harvest seeds or the seeds that reproduce themselves. That's controlled agricultural policies. Let's look at the last one. Government runs social services and welfare state. That's socialism. Now, you say, what about Social Security? Wake up for me. Come on, wake up. Social Security. It's socialism. Now, I don't know about any of the rest of you. It's none of my business. I don't care. Peggy, retired, gets a Social Security check. Now, is that socialism? Yes, it is. Matter of fact, it's the purest form. Are we going to cash the check? Yes, we are. What makes that you're not a part of socialism? Well, Peggy was forced to pay into that by the punishment of imprisonment. Well, that's dictatorship socialism. So Peggy had to pay into it. Peggy would have been a whole lot better off if Peggy would have just been able to take her money and her private money and do with it with what she wanted to do with her private money. Me and Peggy was talking about this the other day. I watched several people at Red Pump work themselves to death. They worked all the overtime. They worked every weekend they could just to retire. And right after they retired, they passed away. Now, if they didn't have a wife or if they didn't have a husband, what happened to all that money they paid in there? That's what's called socialism. But now, in like Peggy's case, if she'd have had her own personal responsibility, you want to put away some money for your retirement? If she would have been diligent and committed to that, she would have a whole lot more money than what she's ever going to collect from the socialized government each month. Well, what are you trying to say, Sherman? I'm trying to say every media outlet is owned by the same people. Every school book in a public school and in every university and college is from the same company. They're all one group of people. They have indoctrinated and told us what to think. We live in a socialism. And now the big deal about the mayor of New York City, I could care less, just to be honest with you. That place is such a mess. They voted in what they wanted. He said, I've watched the debates, he said, we're going to raise taxes. Yeah, we can't fix this without raising taxes. But we're only going to raise taxes on the top 1%. The rich people. Well, the poor people and the common people, they're like, yeah, tax them to death. Ronald Reagan had a great saying. He said, when's the last time a poor person ever gave you a job? Something to think about. Now, I don't like taxes. I think they're evil. I think they're right straight out of the pit of hell. But if you are going to tax people, you ought to tax everybody fairly. You know how many years there's been different idiots that tried to get the United States of America just to go on a 10% tax? They just laugh at them. They're not going to kill that golden goose. So, looks like to me you're in socialism. Now, what about fascism? What is fascism? Well, we want to show you this fascism. It says fascism is a far right, I can't see it for the glare, authoritarian and ultra nationalist political ideology and movement that rose to prominence in the early 20th century Europe. Fascism is characterized by a dictatorial leader, a dictator, right? Centralized autocracy or something like that, militantism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, on and on and on. It's just us. Now look at the mascot for fascism is a fascist. And a fascist is a bundle of sticks wrapped around an axe. That's the symbol of fascism. Now, let me show you some pictures of the symbol being used throughout different... this was a book, The Rise of Fascism, with the Nazi swastika and the sign of fascism. That's a bundle of sticks with an axe sticking out with the blade. And it stands for we are stronger together, militarily wise. That's what the blade axe for. How about another example? That's the symbol in Italy. That's green, white, and red is Italy's. Italy's a big fascist state. Bunch of fascism, bunch of fascists. Now look at my next picture. Now that, you might wonder where that is. That's in the nation's capital of Congress. It's a symbol of fascism. You didn't know you was in a fascist state, did you? How about the next picture? It's everywhere. Look at it. It's on both sides of the House of Congress. The flag's in the middle. I think we're a fascist, national fascist state. It's right before your eyes. I believe God makes the devil show us. And then if you're so ignorant that you allow yourself to be deceived, it's on you, because it was right there in plain sight. How about another picture? It's everywhere, all through Washington, D.C. Now, you can't see it very good probably, but on both sides of Big Abe Lincoln's chair is the sign of fascism. On his chair at the Lincoln Monument. How about another one? Not George Washington. Oh, Georgie Porgy. He's standing with his arm on the symbol of fascism. So, don't worry about some socialist mayor of New York City. Worry about a drag queen buffalo in the middle of your own city. See, the founding fathers, the Civil War, Richard could talk a lot better on this. They wanted to keep everything in the states. And I'm of the belief of this. If you micro size it, if all of the troubles we have, if they were all controlled by each city, see, it's the same ideal of each state controlling themselves, but each city, if each city was an entity to itself, a lot of this stuff would end. For example, in Barnsdall, if the Barnsdall citizens were the ones actually immediately paying into some coffer to some bank account And the people in Barnsdall that were getting all the services were standing in line getting the services, it would be a different thing. Think about it. What if every city was responsible for their own self? If in Barnsdall, everybody in Barnsdall knew that little girl got food stamps, and she was running, she was very capable to work, she was running to the getaway car, they'd put a stop to it. Because they'd be like, hey, sweetie, you can work. But when it's such a big thing, you don't think about it being so personal to you. If you had to live with those people and you watch them, they're like, wait a minute, they're taking from our community chest so much a month, but they just laying there drinking beer on the porch. Well, we need to cut them off. But it's so big, you don't realize. Anyway, that's just my idea. So God teaches personal responsibilities. Let's go. Exodus 22, verse 1 and 2. Here we go. Hang with me while I'm going someplace. If a man shall steal an ox. Now, there ain't a whole lot of oxes around here. Put a car in there. Pickup. Tractor. Something you do work with. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be found breaking up, that means breaking in. So breaking and entering. If a thief be found breaking and entering, and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. Oklahoma has that law, make my day law. If someone's on your property, if they're breaking in your house, you owe them the right to shoot and kill them. That's make my day law. Okay? They used to say, you got to shoot them and then drag them in your house because they got to be in your house. They don't have to be in your house nowadays. You just have to feel like you're under a imminent threat for your life. Okay? That's very biblical. But watch what God does. Verse 3. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be bloodshed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. Now go back to verse 3. What this is saying is you can't wait and hunt him down the next day and then kill him. But if he's in the act of coming in your house, you have the right to kill him. For example, I've said this before. If I pull up and there's 2 guys running down the road with my big TV, I'm not going to shoot them in the back and kill them. That's not self-defense. I wouldn't kill anybody over a TV. But if I'm in the house and I'm asleep or watch TV and somebody breaks the door down, I don't know what they're doing. So I'm not going to investigate or interrogate them. I'm going to shoot them. But God says you can't hunt them down the next day. Now, they do have to pay restitution, but it wouldn't be right for you just to kill them. Now, verse 4. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, if you catch him red-handed, whether it be an ox or an ass or a sheep, he shall restore double. So if you catch it with him red-handed with your car or your ox or whatever, then he's got to repay double. Now, if he turns himself in and he repents and he's sorry, all he's got to do is give you back your valuable plus 20% of the cost. Let me show you Numbers 5, verse 6 and 7. Now he doesn't get caught. He turns himself in, okay? Speaking to the children of Israel, when a man or woman shall commit any sin that men commit, to do a trespass against the Lord, and that person be guilty, they're guilty, then they shall confess their sin which they have done, and he shall recompense his trespass with the principal thereof, whatever the principal was that he stole, and add unto it a fifth part, which is 20%, and give it unto him against whom he hath trespassed. So if you track him down and he's got your $500 TV, he's got to pay you $1,000. He's got to pay you double. But if he comes and turns himself in, then he has to pay you 20%. Now back to Exodus 22, verse 5. Watch this. If a man shall cause a field or a vineyard to be eaten, so his animals get in there, and shall put in his beast and shall feed in another man's field, of the best of his own field and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. If you put your animals in on somebody's vineyard or somebody's field, you got to pay for it. If fire breaks out and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn or the standing corn or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. So you need to watch it when you're starting a fire. If it gets away, then you're responsible for it. It's talking about personal responsibility. If a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. So somebody gives you something, a friend of yours, to hold for you while you go on vacation, and somebody else comes and steal it. If you find them, you got to pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges, to see whether he have put his hand unto his neighbor's goods. So if they can't find the thief, then the guy that was entrusted with whatever it is going to stand trial, because there's a question, maybe he stole it himself. How many of us got some friends like that, right? For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox or ass or sheep, for raiment, or for any manner of lost things, which another challenges to be his, this cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeth it. Then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he hath not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods. Well, that was back when a man's word was his bond. And so if you loan somebody a chicken, and when you come to get it, it ain't there no more, or it dies, or there'd be an oath between them. I make an oath. I didn't kill your chicken. I didn't steal your chicken. I didn't sell your chicken. And that's all the guy would get. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. Why is that? Because he was negligent and allowed somebody to come steal my prized chicken. So it's personal responsibility. He's like, hey, I didn't steal it. Yeah, but you didn't protect my chicken. It was in your care. And if it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness. So if the coyotes got it, you better have a wing or something to prove it. And he shall not make good that which was torn. He doesn't have to pay for it if an animal's tore it up. And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be a hired thing, it came for his hire. So you hire somebody to plow your garden with an ox and it falls over dead on your place. You're not responsible for that. Personal responsibility. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, so she's not engaged to this man, but he entices her, he seduces her, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Now that seems a little harsh on the onset, but according to God, they're already married. You got to get this through people's thick skull. When you have sex with a person, according to God, you are married. And you are married to that person until you have sex with another person. When you have sex with another person, that is a biblical divorce of the first marriage and a marriage to the new person. So when you read the verse 16, according to God, they're already married. And notice, it doesn't say he raped her. There are other laws we'll get to them about a rape. But he just enticed her. So look at verse 18. This is odd. It's talking about all this dialogue, all this stuff. And then this little verse is just thrown in there. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Now, there's been a lot of women killed throughout the Dark Ages because some government official or church official deemed her to be a witch. And I should have got that Monty Python's, she's a witch, because it's awesome. I'll have it for you next time. Now, we want to sit here for just a little bit, not long. Think about this for a second. Yesterday I gave out a food basket. And these two ladies came in here and I turned the light on and they saw that framed chronological deal of the Bible up there. And they said, "What in the world is that?" And I started telling them about it, and they said, "That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen." And I said, "Yeah, I guess you could stand there and look at that for hours and hours and hours and just learn all kinds of stuff." One lady said, "Yeah, it's too bad, but, there's been a whole lot of books taken out of our Bible that we should have had, so we don't know all of that stuff that we should have learned, but, they've been taken out of our Bible." I said, "Really? What books are those?" And she said, "Well, I don't know. I just know there's several of them." And I said, "Well, what do you do with Psalms 112? And she said, "I don't know. What's Psalms 112? I said, "Psalms 112 says that God would purify his word and make it available for you forever." And she went, "Huh?" And I said, "So you must have God's word around here someplace." And so before they got their food basket, they got a little Bible study. Yeah, that's going to be a new thing around here. Now watch this. It's just sad how she's heard that from somebody. She's probably heard that from some so-called self-imposed Bible teacher who wanted, you got to watch them, I'm telling you. I'm trying to give you a nugget here. They want you to look at them like they're elevated or something special. So a lot of times they'll say, the original Greek says this. Well, that's a lie. There is no such thing as the original Greek. Or they'll say the original Hebrew says there is no such, it does not exist. But that makes the Bible teacher lord it over the laity. I know how to speak Greek. I know how to speak Hebrew. I'm smarter than you. Jesus said in the book of Revelation, that's the deeds of the Nicolaitans. Nico means to lord over or to rule over. Laitans, the laity. And Jesus said, I hate it when people in this position that should be servants want to lord over you in your position, which is the laity. When people in this position should be trying to teach and educate, not make themselves look like they're something. I've had several of them so mad at me they wanted to kill me because they talk about they can read Greek. I've studied Greek and Hebrew. All you got to do is ask them, tell me a sentence in Greek, and they'll wet their pants. Why is this in there? Now, let's just slow down. Egberts is going to be there. Does he mean what he says? So you better define what is a witch. Well, a witch at this time would have been anyone who communicated with the dead or used drugs for a potion. And that could have been a male or a female. And there is no such thing as a good witch. There's a bunch of them in Barsville. They claim they're white witches. There ain't no such thing as a good witch. But do you really believe that? That God says, don't let them live? Are you ready to start killing witches? This whole deal tonight's about how deceived we are. Listen, wake up, people. We live in a socialized government. You're just ones like me stuck in the middle of paying for it all. We live in a fascist government. They put it all over the place, right in your face. You don't have to go to Cuba to see fascism. Go to Washington, D.C. But this witch, we don't. I bet you right now, I'm going to say this, and I bet you'll have several different conversations that you've had over the years with people in your family or your friends when they've been communicating or praying to or talking to dead people. And it's a touchy subject because a lot of times they're their daddy or their mama. It's everywhere you look. We don't talk to dead people, and we sure don't pray to them. We don't pray to angels. We don't pray to saints. We, because of the work of Jesus Christ, can go boldly to the throne of God. In Jesus' name. Why are we going to pray to St. Michael? You got to be kidding me. Isaac's Bluegrass Group. I love the Isaacs. But they had a real popular song. And there was one line in that song, and it talks about their dad had died. And Ben Isaac's singing this verse, and he said, and it talks about how you wished you would have said things to them when they were alive. And in this song, the Isaacs, gospel bluegrass as you can get, he says these words. His dad had died. He said, I think I caught his spirit sometime last year. I see his spirit in my baby's eyes or something like that. That's necromancy. You didn't catch your dad's spirit. You better hope and pray your dad's spirit's with Jesus Christ. He ain't running around down here. Dead human beings don't become ghosts. There are no people that have died on this planet and God can't find them. When I came here, this whole church told me there's a bunch of little kids' spirits stuck here. I said, what? They said, I'm telling you, right out there where the playground is, you can hear them. When you're here by yourself, you can hear them. I said, let me tell you something. There ain't no little kids' spirit stuck in this armpit out here at Matoaka Baptist Church. You think God don't know where they're at? Well, you believe whatever you want to, fool. I said, well, I don't doubt you haven't heard voices, but you didn't hear little dead children's spirits. Number one, dead people aren't children. You're not stuck for eternity in the spirit world at whatever age you die. You understand that, don't you? There was a number one country gospel song 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. It said that heaven has a room for women that couldn't have babies, and they get to rock the aborted babies for eternity. And that was on the radio every 5 minutes on country gospel radio. It was the number one song. There ain't no room, there ain't no daycare in heaven where women that couldn't give birth to babies are rocking aborted babies. If you're an aborted baby, you don't stay an aborted baby for eternity. But that's Christendom. So I started teaching on demonism when I got here. And I'll be honest with you, it happened again today. When you're out here all by yourself, now you can question my mental health. You will hear voices. I got up today. It happened again today. Somebody was in this church right outside my door. But they didn't knock on my door. And they didn't come through that door. So I got up and went looking for them. There ain't nobody here. But I'm not that crazy. But we just prayed and the little kids found some other place to play. Now what are those? They are not little children that died and they're stuck here. Those are evil spirits to deceive people into thinking that's how eternity works. And they had this whole church deceived. And they laughed at me. They laughed at me until the day they left. Now this is serious. Now don't you think it's serious when God, okay, for example, everybody says, God created us all equal. How stupid a statement. Number one, God did not create you. Maybe he did, and I don't know. Did he create you? Did God create you? No, he didn't. Technically, your mom and dad created you. Now, did God put that little spirit in there? Well, I'm sure he probably did. But he created Adam and Eve. He created Adam out of the ground. And in Genesis chapter 5, it says Adam had his own kids in his own image. Surely you're not dumb enough to think that God's created us all equal. Let me ask you something. Do you think we're all equal? No, we're all born in a fallen state. Do you really think we're all equal? No, we're not all equal. Me and Rocky was just talking about it. I fixed the sink in the bathroom, in the kitchen back there the other day, and was crippled for 10 hours just from laying on my own fat body. There's a lot of people that wouldn't have bothered them at all. I used to get up from the ground without even thinking about it. Now, I got to strategically plant it on my knee right and find something to help me up. You think I'm equal? There are some people that are brilliantly smart and some not so smart. You think we're all equal? No, we're not. Some people can dunk a basketball. Is there anybody in here that has ever been able to dunk a basketball? No, you haven't. But you've been told that your whole life. Well, I got rights. It doesn't matter if I work or not. I got the right to be fed. No, you don't. Not according to God. Now, let me show you how this works. God says, if there's a witch, don't let her live. Well, if we took that serious, we wouldn't want to have anything to do with witching them, would we? Let me show you this picture. Miss Fox, show this picture. That's a child. That's a child who had no means to make that outfit or buy it. That's a child that some adult dressed up to be a witch. Now you say, oh, get off. It's just a Halloween costume. Do you think churches should be a part of Halloween? I don't. I used to. I used to be the biggest promoter of it. Humble Road. I love Humble Road Church. I love Jeff Wickham. You know what Humble Road did at their trunk and treat this year? They had a tattoo booth. They had a big old sign that said tattoo, and all the little kids come up there and they put on temporary tattoos on them. Wouldn't that be considered grooming? Now, if you got tattoos, hey, it's personal responsibility. That's your own deal. I'm talking about training children. Now, if you really believe God says kill a witch, you think about it. God's humans that he loves, and he's willing to kill one if she talks to dead people. And then some people dress their babies up as a witch. Watch this next picture. Now that's sure enough a baby. Now, I say this all the time. I'll just keep saying it. Every person is inspired by spirits. Can't you see an evil spirit say, oh, wouldn't she make a little cute witch? Well, God don't think witches are cute. But we've made them cute. Matter of fact, Wizard of Oz, we had ugly witches and pretty witches. Look at my next picture. I just got a few more pictures. Now, I want to ask something. Is that a witch? Now, that little girl there, would you think she had some help? Now, I want to ask you, you're going to have to think. What's she trying to depict? Last night, Beauregard, Lynn Borton. Well, Peggy had me order these mustaches, and I had a big old blonde one for Beauregard, and then she forgot them at her house. So Lynn painted one on there, and she sent me a message this morning. She said, I didn't think it was going to come off. Last night I got Debbie Carr. Debbie, I apologize. I felt so bad. I said, because Debbie had it, painted on her mustache lip. And I said, Debbie, your hair's messed up. And she said, oh, really? I said, no, not that, your hair. What is she trying to depict? Well, yeah, but that's easy. You got to look past that. What kind of witch is she? She's a what? A dead one. That's exactly right. That's why she's painted like that. Now, we've I don't know if you read all the stuff about Barnesville, but they were just singing the praises of these people that had went above board in their yards And it was the gruesome, most terrible stuff. One lady said, my kids will never forget that experience. And my heart broke, and I thought, they probably won't. I've did this hundreds of times to hundreds of people, and I've asked them, what's your earliest memory? 99% of the time, it's something traumatic and scary for a kid. Next picture. Do you think that kid there has watched the Chucky movie? I don't know, maybe. Parents are that terrible. But what was Chucky? It was a doll that came. I'm going to tell you something. Dolls are from the pit of hell. And it was all slashed up. Well, we have gotten to where, well, come on, we don't know we're in a socialist country. We're all up in arms, all them Trump lovers and everything. Trump's going to get that socialized mayor. What about the last 10 that's been there? Do you know what they do in New York City? I watched the debate. They said, we're going to fix the rent. We've done it before for the last 30 years. We're going to fix the price of the rent. I'm going to tell you what that means. So, Rocky and Diana have rent houses. That means that the government would come to them and say, we got to get this rent affordable for poor people. So your house may rent for $1,000 easily, but you can't charge $1,000. You can only charge $300. That's socialism. And you know what else they said? They said the housing problem in New York City is we've done that to the people, the landlords, so they just quit renting their places. So they said, we're going to make that illegal for them not to rent their own property. Show my next picture. See, this whole thing's got something to do with dead people. And that's the definition of a witch. Do you think that little girl made that herself? No, she didn't. What do you think? I've taught you this over and over and over, that just cussing at a glass of water changes the molecular part of the water. Well, that little girl's about 80% water. What do you think that does to a person? Also, you can take a glass of water and praise it and pray over it, and it is the most beautiful crystals there ever was. What do you think that stuff does to babies? Next picture. He's some kind of dead zombie joker. I want you to just look at his face. Now, is that child abuse? Now, I know we don't consider it child abuse, but do you think God considers it child abuse? Now, I know you'd be nuts, and somebody could clip this, and I really don't care. What do you think God thinks when God said, if it is a witch, she don't live? Well, what do you think God thinks is worse? A witch praying, talking to dead people, and making up drug potions, or a parent who's been given the gift of a baby in their custody doing this to them? Do I have any more? Yeah, that's my favorite. I'm telling you, if we all lived by the laws that God laid down, this would be a different place. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for your word. Help us to be responsible, have our own personal responsibility. If we've done something, own up to it. Make it right. There's nothing that can't be fixed. If we've been wronged, help us to have mercy. If we've borrowed something and we broke it, let's pay for it. Help us that we follow your guidelines. You placed us in this nation while we have the freedom. Help us to use that freedom every day. In Jesus' name, amen.